Tonight, 2 deaths in 4 months. Another prisoner dies inside HMP. What CBC has learned so far, and
a Carbonear couple is demanding justice after their teenage son was injured in a collision on this street. And police are alleging that the man responsible should never have been behind the wheel.
Just because he doesn't have a valid driver's license doesn't mean he's not going to drive. He is a danger to the public.
I'm Terry Roberts. That story coming up.
We have a publicly funded healthcare system, and the government hired a private company to provide vaccinations for government employees who work in buildings like this.
Taxpayers' money and a private agency whose bottom line is their main priority.
I'll tell you why that concerns the nurses' union later in the show.
Halibut First Nation has a new chief, Jenny Brake from Corner Brook.
Leadership roles are tricky, and I think the best way to be a leader is to listen and to take guidance from community. So that's the kind of leader I want to be and I hope to be.
I'll introduce you to this Mi'kmaq woman and tell you why she feels this role has always been a calling for her.
This is CBC Here and Now.
Good evening and welcome to Here and Now. We'll get to those stories shortly, but first, a 35-year-old man is the latest person to die while serving time at the province's largest prison. CBC News has confirmed that Seamus Flynn was the man taken to hospital from Her Majesty's Penitentiary over the weekend. Flynn was pronounced dead on Saturday. He's the second inmate in 4 months to have died at the facility. Now questions are being raised about the care they're getting inside the prison. Here Now's Ariana Kelland has our top story.
Inmate representatives were called to a meeting Saturday afternoon. They had already heard the news by then, whispers, but this time it was official from the prison psychologist. Someone else serving time at HMP had died. This time it was 35-year-old Seamus Flynn, a father with a long-term partner.
I could hear the inmates in the cells below me screaming and banging on the doors. Roughly 9:30, quarter to 10, so I don't think that he got out of here till maybe 10 o'clock because I could hear inmates that I knew their voices, screaming, "Get him out of here, he's got to go, what's going on?" I didn't understand what the screams were about because I never had the information, so I thought that maybe they were like getting rid of somebody, type thing, but here they were screaming for an inmate to get out to save his life.
Inmates were told Flynn died of a sickness. They say he was ill in the days before, but wasn't taken to hospital until shortly before he died. Other inmates are reporting influenza-like symptoms.
Everybody in the prison is sick, and it's crippling everybody. Literally, laundry's not getting done. There's no cleaning companies. Nobody's sanitizing the areas. They just had a death, and they're not in here spraying everything. They should be in here with hazmat suits spraying everything. Like if he died of a sickness, how come there's no mandatory every inmate's got to wear masks?
Driscoll also points to a rampant rodent infestation and the presence of black mold so severe it shuttered the visiting room. Driscoll and other inmates who spoke with CBC say it's near impossible to get timely medical attention, citing a lack of staff and a lack of prioritizing inmate health. They want a full investigation into the lead up to Flynn's death. Flynn is the second inmate to have died at HMP in 4 months. A man was found dead inside the prison in late August. No cause of death or details have been released by the provincial government to date. Ariana Kelland, CBC News, St. John's.
Tara and Chad Parsons are angry. They say their teenage son was left for dead, seriously injured by a vehicle while riding his dirt bike. Police say George Malcolm Whalen was behind the wheel. He's banned for life for driving after killing someone in a drunk driving crash years ago. Here Now's Terry Roberts has the family's story.
Seth Parsons is getting used to the pain. A badly broken leg, a steel rod surgically implanted in his thigh bone. A tough situation for this active teen. At his request, we're not showing his face. But his parents are not so reserved. They're happy their son is alive, that doctors expect him to make a full recovery. But the collision has left them seething and searching for justice.
Adults are supposed to protect children, not leave them on the side of the road for dead.
So this is where it all happened. 15-year-old Seth Parsons was driving his Honda dirt bike down over Saddle Hill right here, a public road. Now, as he drove in front of Scarlet Ridge right here. The driver of a Chevy SUV suddenly turned into Scarlet Ridge, and a collision happened right here. It was dusk on Thursday, November 23rd. Seth Parsons was on his way home after a ride on his bike. He says the driver of the SUV did not signal his intention to turn into Scarlet Ridge. The impact briefly knocked Parsons out, shattered his leg. When Parsons came to, there was an older man standing over him. Despite his jaw-clenching pain, the teen did not get the concerned reaction he was expecting.
And he was like, "Can you get up?" And I was like, "No." And he was like, "Come on, get up, get up." I was like, "I can't." And then he got back in his car and drove away.
Luckily, passers-by were quick to respond, and the crash occurred just a few hundred meters from the Carbonear hospital. The RCMP mobilized and arrested this man, 74-year-old George Malcolm Whalen, who lives on Scarlet Ridge. Whalen is pictured here during a 2017 court appearance when he was sentenced to 7 years for being drunk while driving a van that collided with a small car in the Trinity Bay community of Thornlea in 2016. That car was driven by this woman, Jane Newhook. The mother of 7 died at the scene. Whalen already had 7 previous impaired driving-related convictions. So in addition to the prison time, a judge stripped Whalen of his driving privileges for the rest of his life. But after his release, Whalen was busted 3 years ago for defying that driving ban. That charge is still before the courts. Now he's facing the same charge in connection to the November 23rd collision in Carbonear, plus an additional charge of leaving an accident scene that resulted in bodily harm. Whalen was released until his January court appearance, which doesn't sit well with these parents.
He's walking around right now as we speak, probably. But my son isn't walking around. So that don't seem fair.
There is some complexity to this case. Seth Parsons was operating a dirt bike, not registered for public roads. No lights. He didn't belong on this street. But neither did George Malcolm Whalen, if in fact he was the man at the wheel.
I always taught him to just follow the rules of the road and everything's okay. Yes, you're going to have to go on pavement from time to time to get to the trails. That's part of the rules here in Newfoundland. Everybody does it, and it's kind of the way.
Police are not ruling out charges under the Off-Road Vehicles Act. But that's secondary for this family. Getting this teenager back on his feet is their top priority. As for any lessons learned,
that there's more important things to worry about than silly old foolish stuff.
Terry Roberts, CBC News, Carbonear.
Well, the RCMP responded to a slew of car crashes involving alleged impaired drivers this past weekend. In a release this afternoon, police detailed 9 instances of apparent impaired driving and say several more drivers had their licenses suspended due to alcohol. Among those, a 59-year-old man who went off the road east of Deer Lake Friday night. His breath samples were nearly twice the legal limit. Holyrood RCMP responded to a 2-vehicle crash on Saturday night. A 27-year-old driver was ejected from that vehicle and taken to hospital with serious injuries. He was not wearing a seatbelt. There was also a single vehicle crash in Corner Brook last night, and according to police, a 47-year-old driver provided a breath sample that was nearly 4 times above the legal limit. In other news, a total of 369 people have come forward claiming they were abused physically or sexually by people under the watch of the Archdiocese of St. John's. Those claims include allegations of abuse by Christian Brothers at Mount Cashel. Archbishop Peter Hunt delivered that update to the insolvency proceedings to parishioners during the Roman Catholic Masses on Sunday. An independent claims officer is evaluating each of those claims and will determine how much is paid to each claimant. The group includes people who have been abused by priests and have not previously sought damages in civil court. Hunt says the officer's decision should come by April. Well, the province's nurses union is questioning government's commitment to publicly funded health care. Government hired a private company to vaccinate provincial employees. The union says that job should have been done by publicly funded healthcare workers. Here Now's Mark Quinn reports.
Mass vaccinations like these during the COVID-19 pandemic were done by publicly funded healthcare workers. The health department is still holding these clinics, but this fall the province hired a private company to provide vaccinations to government employees.
Government is sending mixed messages. On one hand, they're saying, we believe in the publicly funded, publicly delivered healthcare system. We do not support privatization of our healthcare. And then you turn around and give a contract to a private company to immunize government employees.
Coffey says government employees could have received shots at publicly funded clinics staffed by nurses working in the public system. She says this decision, like the decision to pay a private company millions to provide virtual care, leaves her wondering if the provincial government wants to protect our publicly funded system.
They could have reached out to NL Health Services and asked them to come in and do a clinic in the Confederation building. It is another expenditure using our taxpayers' money on a private agency whose bottom line is their main priority, not our publicly funded system.
CBC News asked for an interview with the health minister to respond to the union's concerns, but we received a statement from the Public Service Commission instead. The statement says, as an employer, we want to make immunizations available to protect our public service employees and their families. It goes on to say the public health system is already working hard to provide immunization to the larger population. We respect healthcare professionals in Newfoundland and Labrador and are always mindful when we seek their help. The Commission's statement also said that 310 nurses have been hired to work in the public system since April. Mark Quinn, CBC News, St. John's.
A live look outside our studio tonight. The road's a little wet, snow-covered surfaces out there on the grass, but the reason for that is an area of low pressure just to the south of us at the moment, and that area of low pressure is going to stay to the south, but we've got that onshore flow, and that is bringing all of that snow to portions of the province, mainly in that onshore flow though. But if you take a look at what's happening out there as far as 511 is concerned, the northwest Avalon, in fact, is not even seeing snow. That has changed over to rain for the time being, but we've got lots of snow-covered roads elsewhere, especially the Burin Peninsula, all along the south coast of the island as well, and anticipating that that will end as we head through the night tonight. As far as those snowfall amounts go so far, from what I can find, anywhere about 5 centimeters in Paradise, 2 in St. John's, and the southern Avalon over 10 centimeters. We'll talk about how much more is on the way when I come back.
Thanks, Ashley. Well, a judge will soon decide whether more information will be released about a police investigation into a fatal explosion in Come By Chance. 1 worker died and 7 others were seriously injured in the flash fire more than 15 months ago. The company says in a statement that safety is its top priority. The RCMP launched a criminal negligence investigation in January and executed search warrants at the refinery in March. CBC has gone to court to get those documents unsealed. The Crown and the Mounties are arguing against that, saying the police investigation is still in the early stages and there's a risk evidence could be destroyed or witnesses could be influenced if more information is released now. The judge's decision is due December 14th. Well, the Halibut First Nation has a new chief. Council selected Jenny Brake of Corner Brook to fill the role as leader of the Mi'kmaq Band. Here Now's Colleen Connors has more on what Brake has planned for the coming months.
Well, after a unanimous vote yesterday afternoon by Council, Jenny Brake is the new acting chief of the Halibut First Nation. I met up with her this morning at her new office in the Halibut First Nation office in downtown Corner Brook, where she says that this new role has always been a calling for her.
So it's such a responsibility for not just like to honor my ancestors, but to make sure my grandchildren know that, you know, we did this for them and they can sustain and be who they want to be and be proud of it.
Brake's birthday is the day the band was formed. She can even see her house from her new office window. The chief position was vacant after Brendan Mitchell left to become regional chief for Newfoundland at the Assembly of First Nations. Brake ran for band council in 2021 and became the Western vice chief. Because it's less than a year until the Halibu Band Council elections are scheduled, there was no election required for Brake to be acting chief. She already had plans to run for the chief role next fall.
So whether Chief Mitchell had stayed with us or moved on, my job would have been to continue the work of community and to just do everything in my power and my capacity to move forward all the agendas and all the priorities of our membership. So that is what it'll continue to be.
Halibu means caribou in Mi'kmaq. The band was officially established in 2011. But in 2017, thousands of Halibu members had their status under the Indian Act revoked when a supplemental agreement with the federal government came into effect. Brake says ongoing issues with Halibu enrollment won't be resolved quickly.
So no matter if you have your status or you don't, it hurts all of us. It's a deep hurt that we all carry. And, our reaction to it and the community response is frustration, it is hurt, but we all share that. I share that. I have family that have been affected. So, I think that for Halibu First Nation, the best that we can do is ensure that everyone feels welcome. There are things we can only offer that fall within government guidelines, but culture should be available to everyone.
This mom of three has big plans to open the Halibu office doors a little wider to the public. Her first task? She's already on a plane to Ottawa for the Assembly of First Nations chief meetings. Colleen Connors, CBC News, Corner Brook.
The next phase of an inquiry about Innu children in care will take aim at the child care system itself. The inquiry first began last February and so far has heard testimony from survivors, leaders, and community members. Here Now's Heidi Adder has more on what we can expect next year.
Commissioners and lawyers have left Nawashish following a week of community meetings. The inquiry respecting the treatment, experiences, and outcomes of Innu in the child protection system has wrapped for this year. Formal hearings are set to begin in January.
These will be about the child welfare system, current legislation, policies, and practices, and hearing from different experts or stakeholders in that system.
This inquiry took more than 5 years to get underway. Investigations into the death of 6 children in care were expected to start in the new year, but Devine says that they will be pushed back till later in the winter, so that all necessary details and documents can be presented to the families first.
We've been sort of shifting around different pieces of work. Of course, there's lots of work that's happening that is in the background and getting documentations and doing all the legal work necessary for that. So that does take some time.
While it can be challenging to hear the stories of trauma, abuse, cultural separation, and more, commissioners say it's encouraging to see that people have the strength to talk about the past.
And I could sense that there is hope, and that's what gives me hope, is that when I can sense people saying that they want to make their lives better, they want to make their children's lives better. And the systems that have impacted them and how the system has impacted them and how they would not like to see that in the future.
Commissioners still hope to have the final report released next October. Members of the Innu community hope recommendations will lead to the creation of their own child welfare system. Heidi Adder, CBC News, Nawashish.
Well, it was a week late, but the Santa Claus parade went off without a hitch in St. John's yesterday. There were over 50,000 people there, along with some little wiener dogs, the big stick, and the big guy himself. Have a look.
Generally, this is the most well-attended event, Christmas parade of this type, and whoever's here, we're just grateful for them to be here, and that includes participants and spectators. Just everyone is together kicking off the Christmas season and having a great time. You can hear the Kuba Sonics behind me. It's a pretty exciting day.
I'm excited to see Big Stick and the wiener dogs. The wiener dogs are so cute. And my dad's float he's making a float for the parade, and the float is done. It has 3 lollipops and 3 candy canes swirling around, and I think there's music.
Tell me about the parade. What did you like about it?
I like the music.
Yeah?
Santa Claus.
Merry Christmas, guys!
I like the bell, like the drums, they're all in like a line. That was cool.
What did you enjoy in the parade today?
Seeing Santa.
Santa, yeah, he's nice. What did you enjoy in the parade today?
I like seeing Santa.
Merry Christmas, Leo! Merry Christmas, everybody! We're really blessed to have 2 nice weekends like this in a row. That was a big fear of us all, that we'd get rained out or something this weekend, and then what? We start preparing this basically in January. There's things that you have to do at different points of the year, things that you have to reserve, equipment that you have to book. But really it starts in kind of flat out, so to speak, in August, and that's where the real work begins. There's some awesome floats here this year, some both corporate and non-corporate. We've got Valet here with a beautiful float, Heave Away Waste Management, Memorial University, Argentia Industrial Services, just to name a few. Like, you know, there's a lot of time, effort, and energy gone into the floats that are here this year, and it's really easy to tell.
Well, it wasn't just St. John's. From Corner Brook to Conception Bay, across the province this weekend, people were getting in the holiday spirit, taking part in community parades. Here's how it looked in Labrador West on Saturday as floats made their way through Labrador City and Wabush.
Yeah, and boy, was the weather ever great for most of us. Now, we do have some weather happening right now, lots of snow happening. We've got some cold temperatures moving in for Labrador as well. I will break it all down for you when I come back in a few minutes.
Holidays from CBC Newfoundland and Labrador.
Yeah, what a wonderful time we had yesterday at the annual Downtown St. John's Christmas Parade. I couldn't get over how many people were there. Upwards of 50,000 people lined the streets. That's our Katie Breen there dancing away. Yeah, 50,000 people watching the floats go by, waiting for the big guy in red.
Yeah, and we were there along with some of our CBC colleagues, a few dogs like Drizzle.
Yes.
She loved it. And yeah, like we mentioned earlier, the weather was absolutely perfect.
Yeah, it was gorgeous. And Drizzle, I think Drizzle was kind of the star of it in our little group because Drizzle was just going around to all the kids.
She was definitely in her glee. That's one of her favorite things. She loves little kids and her tail was just going. So she was very happy.
Yeah, it was a great time.
Yeah.
So looking ahead at the weather, yesterday was perfect. How are things looking going forward?
Yeah, well, snow today. We've had quite a bit of it out there, depending on where you were. Of course, now southern areas of the Avalon have seen the most so far. Southern areas of the Burin Peninsula as well. We topped out at between 0 and about +1 today for most areas in the eastern portion of the island anyway. And then a little bit more than that towards the southwest and up across Labrador, much colder into the minus double digits. Churchill Falls at -19 as your daytime high today. Now temperatures towards the coast still into the minus single digits, but as we head through the night tonight, we're actually going to start to see some milder air move in, especially for those of you up across northern Labrador around Nain. Your temperature will actually hover above 0 through the day tomorrow as we start to see some of that marine layer move a little bit further inland. But yes, very cold to the west, Lab City down to -16. That wind chill feeling more like -23. And down to the minus single digits through areas through central and the west coast as well. Now taking a look at the satellite picture, radar picture, or the lack thereof, still not seeing that radar picture for Holyrood. Hopefully will be up by the end of the week, it looks like, but it is making it a bit difficult to know exactly where that rain snow line is as far as I can see. But just judging by the road conditions, it does look like the Northwest Avalon is seeing that change over to rain at the moment. But we will still continue to see some of that snow. Now, the forecast model showing that this should all be snow, but because we're in that onshore flow, obviously that is playing into it. But as we head through the night tonight, the snow will start to lift a little bit further north. So we should see that ending for the Burin Peninsula, southern Avalon, and then stick around from pretty much Terra Nova through to the northern portion of the Avalon, and snowfall amounts will eventually ease as we get into the early morning hours. Now, how much more are we expecting? Still likely somewhere between 5 to 10 centimeters as our total, but over the next or over tonight and into tomorrow afternoon, we'll likely pick up another 2 to 5 centimeters for the northern portion of the Avalon. We may see some pockets of a little bit more than that, but as you head towards the west coast and even up across Labrador, a trace to 2 centimeters is certainly possible. Temperatures tonight will hover around the 0 degree mark for the Avalon. Otherwise, minus single digits and cold up across Labrador, -20 tonight for those of you in Lab West. And then, like I said, dropping down to -7 for Nain, but as you head through the day tomorrow, you will see those temperatures warm up. Weather-wise, tomorrow will likely be cloudy. May see a few peaks of sun for the northern peninsula and maybe even southeastern Labrador, but that chance of flurries or light snow will be the story. And then we'll see some light snow developing for northern portions of Labrador. That will sink south and head west as the overnight rolls through. And then another round of snow or light snow or flurries will move across the island as well. Temperatures tomorrow will hover around the 0 degree mark, maybe a little bit below. Winds will be out of the north, around 20 kilometers per hour through the day. We're looking at that chance of flurries through central as well. Temperatures hovering between 0 and -1. Similar forecast for those of you on the west coast. Your winds will pick up a little bit in the evening hours. Most of the day will actually be relatively light winds. You'll be hovering between 0 and about -2 through the day. Northern Peninsula, like I said, southeastern areas of Labrador, you should see the sun at some point tomorrow afternoon. Temperatures will be a bit cooler though, minus single digits with those northwest winds. And there's that mild air I was talking about into Nain, around 1 degree, but you will see that snow develop late day. Your winds will pick up as well, 30 to 50 kilometers per hour. Otherwise, hanging on to the minus double digits for Lab City. You're talking about a daytime high near minus 16 tomorrow, and this cold air is going to head a little bit further towards the coast, Carolyn. So Labrador, get ready for some of this cold air.
Ooh, that is cold. And I know it's only a few weeks away, but it is beginning to look a lot like Christmas out there with the snow coming down. It's very nice. Thanks, Ashley.
No problem.
Man, I work at a bank. Why am I doing deliveries at 1 a.m.? I do have that nagging thought sometimes.
We tend to feel guilt if we're not earning, if we're not productive.
Absolutely.
It's a grind. She goes from the bank to her second job to being a delivery driver. We explore the harm of hustle culture coming up next. What may be a side hustle for some is a necessity for others. Our series, The Grind, follows those juggling multiple jobs to make ends meet. Tonight, we bring you Mika Porney's story, a banking intern who also works in retail and as a delivery driver. Here Now's Malone Mullen has more.
This one was $20. This was free. Most of the clothes you see, yes, I do own a lot of things. It looks contradictory. Well, like, yeah, you're broke. Why do you own so many things? Most of this was free or less than $10.
In Mika Porney's world, everything has a price. But what she values most is her time.
It's like, there is a nagging thought, like, man, I work at a bank. Why am I doing deliveries at 1 a.m.? But I don't know. When you get used to it, you get used to it.
Porney's primary job is all about money. She works at a bank before heading off to her second job in retail. Every day, every hour is carefully accounted for. And that's because her work doesn't end there.
I'll buy this, I'll buy that, I'll resell, I'll go to Value Village, I'll get stuff for cheap, sell it for cheap for other people.
In her downtime, Porney's still clocking in, delivering food for DoorDash and Instacart, or reselling clothing and home decor online. It's exhausting, and it takes a toll, but she can't stop.
Every day I had panic attacks, every day. Best way to explain it is in my head, it's like me screaming. I'm not even thinking, it's just me screaming.
A professor at Dalhousie University says the idea of hustle culture dates back centuries. It's relentless and unsustainable.
This notion that like hard work in itself is a virtue. So, work is good, even if it's a grind, even if it's wearing you down. Any version of that idea, the hustle culture, it's harmful. I don't think it works for people. I do think it works for employers.
E-commerce and app-based gigs mean people like Porney can now work around the clock, leaving little time for anything else.
If I go downtown and I spend $30, just like that, I'm just like, well, crap, I don't have money. Sometimes I need to spend that money. Sometimes I need to, kind of enjoy myself. But then the guilt.
Life's not just all about the hustle.
Exactly, but the guilt afterwards.
Bree Sofer knows the feeling. He's worked on the apps for 8 years.
I think, in this culture and in this time, we tend to feel guilt if we're not earning, if we're not productive.
Sofer says gig work offers the promise of flexibility, quick extra cash without real commitment, but that freedom comes with a cost.
That also doesn't guarantee that these apps will offer you a rate of pay that allows you to earn a living wage. What happens to a lot of workers that do this part-time or even full-time is they end up working longer and longer hours.
This lifestyle, the constant hustle, makes big promises, ones it doesn't necessarily deliver on. And for Porney, Sofer, and people like them, it comes at a steep price: their time. Malone Mullen, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, staying with the cost of living, these are sobering times for Canada's craft brewing industry. Inflation is soaking up profits and wringing out customers. As the CBC's Lindsay Duncombe reports, many beer makers are now looking at turning off the taps.
In just a few weeks, the fermenters at this Vancouver craft brewery will be emptied for good.
And when we finally close that door on December 31st, it's going to be challenging, I think. It'll be sad.
It's not because the beer sucks. This won Best in Canada. But owner Chris Lay says his new landlord plans to raise the rent to up to $10,000 a month. Combine that with the soaring cost of hops, barley, taxes, and well, pretty much everything, and he can't make a go of it.
When you look at it purely logically, it's a no-brainer. Emotionally, much harder.
The problem for breweries right across the country is that everything you need to make beer is costing more, and people aren't drinking as much beer. The BC Craft Brewers Guild says warnings about booze consumption are changing behavior, and those who do imbibe are broke.
We just are not seeing the drinkers. People are not coming in as often to the tasting rooms, or they're not purchasing because they just can't afford to do it. They're buying groceries and gas.
That makes it tough to consider raising prices to cover costs.
I think it would be easy to say 15% of the businesses are very much struggling, that they may not be in business this time next year.
Rent may be especially high in Vancouver and other big cities, but breweries in smaller places are at risk too, says the National Association. It wants to see pandemic loans extended and federal taxes reduced.
Really just to stay afloat through 2024 and beyond. Breweries just need a break right now.
Chris Lay is looking for a new place to brew, somewhere more affordable, perhaps shared. His business plan now includes craft, non-alcoholic soda, adapting to sobering times. Lindsay Duncombe, CBC News, Vancouver.
Coming up on Here and Now, an exclusive look inside the notorious Grace Hospital nurses' residence. It's been rotting, abandoned more than 20 years, but there's a big reason it's still standing.
We're probably upwards to 1,000 tons of asbestos alone coming out of this building.
Is that a lot?
That is a lot of asbestos.
A toxic building, looks like a horror movie, and needs a deep clean before demolition. No problem, right? That's coming up on Here and Now.
Tonight, we're bringing you an exclusive look inside the Grace Hospital nurses' residence, a derelict building in St. John's that's been abandoned for more than 2 decades. But before the notorious eyesore can be torn down, one major issue is standing in the way, and it's everywhere. Asbestos, a cancer-causing material. Here now, Zach Gowdy takes us inside the Grace for the cleanup.
Inside one of the most dangerous, dilapidated buildings in all of St. John's, a team is scraping the dust from the rafters. The Grace Hospital nurses' residence, abandoned for more than 20 years, it's slated for demolition in 2 months. So why are they going over it with a fine-tooth comb?
What we have here is hazardous materials. So you'll have asbestos, you'll have fireproofing, which also contains asbestos. You'll find the asbestos in the plaster, in the floor tiles. It all has to go. Everything has to be remediated prior to the building coming down.
Remediated means scraped clean, stripped out, bagged up, and removed. Simple enough, except the job site looks like a horror movie, and it's so toxic you need a biohazard suit to step inside. It's a dirty job, but someone is finally doing it. And they have to do it carefully, because all that asbestos, down to the actual dust, has to be gone before this building becomes dust too.
I trained here, graduated in '69, and just have so many memories, so many friendships.
The Grace Hospital was built in the 1920s, but the nurses' residence was added in the 1960s, around the time that asbestos use in building construction was at its peak. Both buildings closed in 2000, and the hospital was torn down in 2008, but the residence was left standing. As years went by, it became the scourge of the neighborhood.
People commonly describe this as a behemoth, a monster of a building, dilapidated, disastrous danger in the community. We've actually had to call the police. There's been smoke coming out of windows.
I just kind of associated vacant buildings now with like a site to put garbage and needles.
In my lifetime, and I'm getting close to 70, I would like to see something done, right?
Okay, you lead the way.
Now, it's being done. Inflector Environmental Services won a $2.5 million contract to take the building down for good. The hard part? Doing it safely. Today, they're going to show me how it's done.
Whoa. Okay, so Darren, where are we?
We're in decon number 1.
And what is this place?
This is where we get changed. This is our showers. We got to shower out every time we come out for break. It's dangerous stuff.
A disposable plastic suit over your clothes, leave behind work boots or disposable booties so you don't track the asbestos out of here. And the most important part, a full face mask and respirator. It's tight and loud and uncomfortable, but when you step inside, you're glad you've got it on.
Okay, lead on.
Okay. So you want to go where the nuts is first, right?
As we were walking in, one of the workers told me I was lucky that we'd be staying down on the lower floors. I asked why, and she said, because of the smell. I asked, why did the upper floors smell worse? She said, because of the birds.
You know, a lot of us have done asbestos for a long time. Some of our crew have done it for 20 plus years. And walking in this building, it's a building like no one's seen. There was a foot of debris on the floor. There were pigeons everywhere. There were no windows sealed up. There was a lot of hazardous materials.
The team from Inflector started on the top floors and have been working their way down. These are some of the only rooms left that haven't been touched.
Basically, this is the only place that the floors are not cleaned up yet, is in there.
Hard to imagine it now, but for generations of nurses, this was home. The upper floors were mostly dorm rooms. Down here, they had a gymnasium. Around the corner was the swimming pool. Today, we might have to swim to it. Even though it's the tail end of the project, this building still has some surprises.
We're doing some testing. We're doing some additional testing in the swimming pool area. There's always that chance of hidden asbestos. So downstairs you would have seen block walls, but in behind that we found a layer of plaster.
As the techs extract a sample of that plaster, the lights go out.
There goes the light.
What was I saying about a horror movie? But the real-life pros don't panic. They just flick on their flashlights. And a minute later,
We're gonna have to take this wall out. There's 2 walls there. There's the outer wall and the inner wall. Yeah, the inner wall contains asbestos. Back in the day, it was a good building material. Basically, it's hard to burn. So it was used as a good insulation for fire stopping. In this building here, we've got, like I said, 7 floors. It has plaster, it has fireproofing floor tile, everything. I'd say we're probably upwards to 1,000 tons of asbestos alone coming out of this building. Is that a lot? That is a lot of asbestos. Basically, everything that's in here has to be treated as contaminated.
when he says everything, he means everything. So when every inch of a 7-story building is contaminated, where do you start?
Yeah, asbestos abatement is the portion where we actually start removing the materials itself. So the drywall, the plaster, the floor tiles, etc. So we're removing it by hand, by tools, putting it in the bags and sending it down to where you see right now. Another process behind that is the washing, which is the fine cleaning, wiping everything down. Once that's done, we usually encapsulate everything with a glue so that there's no more fibers in the air.
This is what it looks like when they start the abatement. And here's what it looks like when they've finished.
So all the remediation has been done. The visual test has been done. The final air test has been done. And this floor is safe to be demolished when we get to it.
They're planning to get to it in the new year. After towering over St. John's for more than 60 years, a high-reach excavator will soon be going up next to this building to tear it apart, top to bottom. The long shadow of the Grace will be gone, and all this asbestos will be at the bottom of a deep hole at Robin Hood Bay. As the Inflector crew clears the remaining rooms, they're closing doors no one will ever open again, closing the book on the story of this building, from healthcare beacon to health hazard.
It's definitely been an eyesore, as they call it, for a long time. We want to make sure that everything is removed out of here. We take this building down safely so that no one ever has to worry about this place again.
Zach Gowdy, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, Old St. Nick was busy this weekend. Parades were taking place all over the province. Here's how it looked in Conception Bay South on Saturday for the annual Santa Claus Parade. We'll be right back.
Merry Christmas, everybody. Ho, ho, ho. What a beautiful day here in CBS. The weather is...
Well, the weather this week starting, well, very wintry for a good chunk of eastern portions of the island. But as we head through tomorrow night and into Wednesday, we're going to see some snow up across Labrador. That will work its way south as we head through to the morning hours on Wednesday. And then it looks like we're going to see some snow for the eastern portion of the island as well. That will move through fairly quickly, but we'll continue to see that snow sink south, and then even some onshore flurries possible for those of you in western portions of the island. So that means that temperatures overall should stay on the cool side into the minus single digits pretty much across the island. Up across Labrador, some of that milder air that I was talking about, relatively speaking, considering it has been fairly cold, will start to move in. So minus single digits, just barely. And then we're going to say goodbye to those cold temperatures in Lab West as well. You'll hover around -7 through the day on Wednesday. Now, Wednesday evening into Thursday, we've got that snow that will work its way across the island into the morning hours, and we're watching this area of low pressure retrograding. Again, that means that the system is moving from east to west instead of what we typically see, which is from west to east. So we're seeing that onshore flow, especially towards the coast. This does mean that we'll see the winds pick up through Thursday evening into Friday morning, and we'll likely see some snow develop as well along the coast. Now, this area of low pressure will be our weather maker for the next couple of days. So we're going to have to keep an eye on that one. But overall, temperatures will start to warm up a little bit, even more above zero for those of you in and towards the coast of Labrador. Minus double digits again for the west. And then temperatures across the island aren't really moving a whole lot, still into the minus single digits. But again, we will see that flurry or light snow activity continue through a good chunk of Thursday. Long range forecast showing temperatures, again, not really moving much. We'll see a bit of a warm up as we get towards the weekend, it looks like at this point, where Saturday we could see rain or snow as those temperatures hover around +3 into the afternoon hours. And then for central Newfoundland, Friday looks pretty nice at this point, but Saturday, that weather will move in and we'll see those daytime highs around +2. Same thing for western Newfoundland, although it does look like more flurry activity as we see these onshore winds continue. And our daytime highs will be around -2 right till Friday, and then warming up above zero as we get into Saturday. For eastern Labrador, you're looking at your temperatures warming as well. Similar trend, and temperatures into the minus double digits for Labrador West as you see some sunshine potentially by the time we get into Saturday. Now, speaking of sun, this is a sunrise over Churchill River in Labrador. Thank you so much for that great shot. You can see some of that ice forming there. If you have any weather photos that you would like to share with us, we love to see them. You can send them to my Facebook page or email them to nlphotos@cbc.ca.
Oh, that's really nice. The sun almost looks warm with those sunbeams, but we know it is pretty chilly there.
It's not very warm.
My goodness. Yes. Great shot. Thank you so much for this. All right, well, that's it for us on this Monday. Thank you so much for spending part of your evening with us.
Good night.